grocery and being like, I shouldn't be snacking, so I'm not gonna buy any snacks. And then like the next day you're at home after you went to the grocery and you go to get some snacks and then you're upset because you didn't buy snacks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you don't have a snack and now you're mad and you got to eat like a piece of bread. And I had that situation yesterday. I was like, I want a snack. I want a good snack. And then I was like, but we don't have no snacks. This is dumb. I was like, how can we be a snackless home? Like,
bro, I love me some snacks, man.
Dude,
I'm telling you, like junk food is.
For me, it's not junk food. You know what I want? I want like a piece of beef jerky.
See, no.
Or I want like a handful of peanuts.
I want some Doritos and like some freaking Little Debbie cakes.
Those are terrible snacks, though. Those are nuclear toxic snacks.
I know, but that's what.
But they're good. Like all right. So look, man. All right. So I'm all for the Maha movement and making America healthy again. But let's be clear. There is no better chip on planet Earth than an original nacho cheese Dorito. Like,
I mean,
I can't eat like 3. Like, I got to eat the whole family size bag.
In the crunchy Cheetos, bro.
Oh, the original crunchy Cheetos. Look, man, don't get me wrong. From time to time, a cheesy poof is nice.
But the original crunchy
Cheetos is where it's at.
I mean, and then they got the flaming hot version and all that kind of stuff. Look, I love all of them.
I like the jalapeno. I don't like the flaming hot, but I like the jalapeno. Like they're spicy, but I don't pay for it on the toilet the next day.
I love the Cheez-Its and all that stuff too, but I can't eat any of it now, dude, man. I mean,
the extra toasty Cheez-Its.
Well, anyway, I mean, for me,
it's technically just call what it is a burnt Cheez-It. But
yeah, pretty much. These were burnt, so we put them in their own box and called them something.
We overdid these a bit. We're just gonna call these extra toasty Cheez-Its.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm like, it was a real struggle for me at first when I started eating healthy. This whole like sort of pseudo carnivore, keto, whatever the hell you want to call what I do. It's not really anything specific, but you know, every once in a while I'll have some junk food, but like I don't ever do like I did sometimes before. Like I don't just drain a bag of freaking Doritos.
Dude, I can gut punch Doritos. For me, it's not sweets, man. It's salt. Like salty salt. Like I don't, you could, if I never got sugar again, I'd be okay. But salt, if you told me I couldn't have chips, I might flip a table. Like that's just dirty.
Flip it.
That's just a dirty way to play the game.
Speaking of flipping tables.
Okay.
We got to go back pretty far here in time and talk about this before we get into the media.
Okay.
So, you know, Jesus went around, he got mad.
Very angry. Righteously angry
at the
money changers
and the Sanhedrin and all that kind of stuff, flipping tables, whips and everything. And people just kind of throw that off as like, that's not in the, modern Christians should not be, they shouldn't be violent or aggressive in any way. Yet that is part of what Christ did.
I will be
on his mission.
I will quantify it by saying this. Unnecessarily aggressive, sure, but righteously aggressive and righteously angry, absolutely.
Okay, so the reason why I bring that up is because, like, today we're talking about the media,
American
and the news, and journalism in general, and I think like you can go all the way back to. But even you can go all the way back to BC time frame and know that like, Caesars and Egyptian, what they call them, pharaohs, stuff like that. Would sit there and like control the narrative of what the public was allowed to know, right? Like this isn't a new thing. This is like, since we've had a pseudo civilization, the news has been controlled by some form or factor, right?
Yeah.
And this has gone on, and I just want to point out a couple, before we really get into the nuts and bolts of this, a couple key people who people seem to just completely forget about. William Tyndale and John Wycliffe. Okay, these are two guys that are really important in the whole Christendom thing, but they tell this controlling of the narrative and the news, and they're examples of that specifically that really needs to be paid attention to. John Wycliffe, okay, he was an Oxford theologian in the 1300s.
Yeah.
He tried to translate he translated the Bible that they knew into Middle English, and that was against the whole church period, right?
Yeah.
And he was declared a heretic, and he died of a stroke, though. They didn't get to execute him, although they wanted to. And it was like 44 years after his death, they ordered his bones dug up, burned, and then scattered in the river. Right? That's how the church was trying to control the narrative of like who could hear the word and who couldn't and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Tyndale's even worse in 1530s, right? He actually produced the first English New Testament translated directly from the Greek. And he's a Christian hero. We got to understand this. But what happened? He fled England to print it in Germany, because English at that time had said it was illegal to do so, and then copies of it were actually smuggled back to England. But he was arrested, tried for heresy, then he was strangled and burned at the stake. Okay, I mean, his famous last words are, "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." Right. So I mean, this isn't like some weird aspect that we're going to be talking about. This is controlling the news, and what the common folk actually get to know has been going on forever. But we had this brief period where it was kind of better.
Yes.
So I don't want to get too much into some of this stuff, but like the Licensing Act and Public Occurrences thing that happened under Charles II.
Yes.
Here's actually the full title, because I think this is important. An act for preventing the frequent abuses in printing seditious, treasonable, and unlicensed books and pamphlets, and for regulating of printing and printing presses. That's the title of this licensing.
That's a lot.
Act of the press, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah, so that tells you what they're trying to do. I mean, they're instead of, it's not really censorship, it's like controlling the license of who can print what to control that, right? So you pretty much have prehistory. You have the church controls the text, then you have the crown, the English crown, who moves on to control the press, because that controls
kind of like they're trying to do right now.
Well, there's that. So then the equipment itself is licensed, and then what happens? Okay, what is one of the reasons why the American people even came over here? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion,
to escape
freedom
tyranny.
of press, right? So let's keep that mindset, because in the early 20th century, I'm sorry. In the 1920s to the 1990s, we had this, I'm going to say it what it is, weird, historically unprecedented thing. We had a professional class of journalists claiming to operate as neutral third parties reporting facts.
Yes.
So we had this, there was no license, no gatekeeping, no explicit like partisan affiliation. It was just, like a civic invention of America, right? From the 20s to the 70s.
Which would include like coverage of the Vietnam War. If you look back on the actual news coverage of the Vietnam War, that was one of those honest, open, there was a lot of stuff that was shown on television that would have been completely deleted and erased by the media and by the people in charge. So yeah, you're right.
So it all, I guess where I'm going is like all this stuff, we have all this historical things about the narrative being directed and licensed and, you know, whatever the case may be about how we should be ingesting the news and what we can know, what we should know, you know, all this stuff. And then we do get this period of time when there was at least an attempt to get like some actual fact
to allow journalism to be what it was meant to be.
Yeah. But only for just one lifetime.
Like I think that's a little flash in the pan.
Yeah. And so where do we see this from there? And I think that's where we see the Gallup poll, Brian, show up and tell us really the numbers about how we think the news is being reported.
Well, I mean, I think. Well, let me preface all this with making a statement. I'm going to give you guys the answer before we get into the question because I think it's necessary. I think part of the problem that we have in our current society, and this is through kind of looking through this lens and studying this stuff over the week, and we've talked about this a few times before. We've briefly touched on it. We've never really gotten into it, is the fact that critical thinking has died in many, many ways. So it's made the narrative easier to control. When you no longer are capable of critically thinking, you'll take whatever narrative you're given because you're too lazy to do any research. I believe what we see right now and what we will see going through all this is that we've reached a tipping point in the sense of it's no longer even actually a narrative. Narratives usually, even the worst narrative, usually touches on the truth from time to time. We're no longer even there, right?
Well, we'll get to why, but
yeah.
But the Gallup poll, though, this is where we put my numbers here.
Yeah.
The question they've been asking for like 50-something years is, do you have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly?
Yes.
So it topped out at 1972 at 68%.
Well,
said yes.
I think that's important to read these percentages, right? Like
yes.
In 1972, you're right. At 68%.
So it says, yep.
At 2016, what's that? 34 years later, roughly 34 years later, it's below 40%. By 2024, it's 31%. By 2025, it was 28%. So we see the trend, right?
But it's even worse.
Yes.
Because what the split isn't there is like, by 2024, Republican trust was at 11%.
Yeah. Yes.
Democrat were at 54%. Independent was 27%. And so you have 54% that took this poll who are people who took the survey who are Democrat. 54% of them in 2024 said that they thought the news was fairly balanced and accurate, right? But you only had 11% of those who called themselves Republicans say the same thing. Okay, now I just want to make that point clear, right? The polarization of that trust is so blatant and just
well,
that should tell you a lot.
Well, you know, and you got to look at, you know, and look. I'm not a Fox News guy. I believe
I'm not either.
Very little of what they say, just because, again, we're talking today about what journalism is. But you have so many liberal media outlets. You have MSNBC, CNN. You have the New York Times. You have like these the liberal wacko left owns the majority of the media outlets.
As we've covered.
As we've figured it out. So there's no wonder why the Democrats would have 54%, right? You control most of the narrative.
Yeah.
Right? Now, is that to say, you know, I'll give you an example. And sometimes you'll see good things happen on liberal media. I watched a reporter call out Elizabeth Warren the other night on hypocrisy on CNN. I was shocked. I literally was like, did I change the channel?
Yeah.
I was like,
where am I watching?
But I think, but let's get back to the, you know, first let's talk about a little bit about the Gallup poll. The Gallup poll is not a popularity contest. It's a general population survey run with consistent methodology, right? So you're not looking at something that's inconsistent. At least not like most things at this point. If you look at the polarization of media, trust is part of all this, right? Like trust is it's part of everything that goes along with it. And it tells you the collapse what's being driven by is quality, right? In some neutral sense, it's lies and tribal alignment is what it is. We need to look at these percentages tell us what's happening, right? You have the pie's right in front of you. You know, the colorful thing that you have the graph.
You have an opinion.
You have an opinion.
You have an agenda, and that's getting intertwined with the news, and it's obvious.
And we now obviously know too in the background that things are moving. You have the George Soroses who are driving money into creating narratives for the liberal media to take.
Dude, just this week we have all this Southern Poverty Law Center stuff.
Yeah, dude. Unbelievable to me. The Southern Poverty Law Center was giving money to racist groups and then tried to claim they were doing undercover work. I was like, no, that's not how that works.
Dude,
you're not a legal, you're not a police state. You don't get to do undercover work.
Okay. But look, this does not mean that journalism used to be this truthful, factual thing. And now it isn't. It's not this nostalgic view back of anything. I want to make that clear because I wasn't really like I was around when Cronkite and all that stuff, but and people you hear like the older people, you know, senior citizens now talk about the whole Cronkite era. Yeah, but that's not. I don't firm like when I've looked back at it. That's still slanting things, but it, you know, granted better than what it is now. Yeah. But like you said, truth is not the same thing as trust. And that's a huge thing. Like, you know, a group of people can trust a liar. I mean, that's just the way it is. But what we've talked about is like, neither one of us find a news source that we can just go, oh, that's just the facts. Yeah, cool. No, we don't find that. I mean,
and the problem is if you have one, it corrupts quickly because money talks and popularity talks. There's been a few that have popped up over the last 10 years, but within months they're usually slanted.
So what all this means is that something structural changed.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's what we got to look at. So, Brian, Walter Lippmann, 1922. Lippmann isn't a name most people know, but he's arguably the most important American journalism theorist of the 20th century. He's the opening move of the book that built the whole profession. The real environment is altogether too big, too complex, and too fleeting for direct acquaintance. The real environment is altogether too big, too complex, and too fleeting for direct acquaintance. What was he writing that for?
Sorry, man, I'm lost. I'm lost in your notes.
Okay.
Like
Lippmann he wasn't writing to criticize the public. Okay. No. He was actually trying to explain what he thought journalism was for. Okay.
Yes.
The world is too complicated for ordinary people to understand directly. It's kind of his argument. Okay. So keep in mind, this is 1922. They needed a professional class of experts to tell the people what's going on. So it was
the manufacture of consent was what his phrase, right?
Well, the phrase is the real. Well, okay. The phrase is the real environment is altogether too big, too complex, and too fleeting for direct acquaintance. And he was talking about for the public needed a professional class of experts to tell them what was going on. Right. That was in the manufacture of consent.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me make sure I got that right.
Yeah. He was supposed to be a feature adaptation to modern complexity.
Yeah. So that's kind of how the objectivity era that we're talking about, this golden age from the 20s to the 90s gets formed, is for this pseudo professional class of journalism meant to have a specific goal, and that is to not enlighten or educate, but just have them in the know of what's going on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the deal come from? That's 1919 to 1947, and three men tell you almost everything you need to know.
Well, Lippmann versus Dewey, 2 books 5 years apart, that frame the whole American debate over journalism is for, or for what American journalism is for.
There you go.
Walter Lippmann, Public Opinion. Public is too ignorant and too busy to govern itself directly, needs an expert class to manufacture consent. Journalism is the bridge between the experts and the public. John Dewey, The Public and Its Problems, 1927, direct counter argument. The public isn't ignorant, it's unorganized. The solution isn't experts filtering reality for the masses. The solution is civic education and participatory institutions. Journalism should equip citizens, not narrate for them.
But see, this piece right here is critical.
Yeah.
Okay, because basically what John Dewey is describing here is actually our preferred method of news.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's saying it's not about being ignorant. It's just this, it's unorganized, and it's not about like putting out and having to explain the reality to the masses. It's like equipping the citizens.
Yeah. I would dare say that our current form of news is it's not only unorganized, but it's irrational, which causes a lot of the unorganized things to go on, because we see a lot of examples of it. A news story will hit. Normally, let's go back to the Cronkite days. Cronkite would have time to prepare. He would go to the desk. He would report the news, whether it was slandered or not, and usually didn't have to back out of anything, right? But our current news cycle is, this happened. Everybody bum rush the desk. Let's just talk about it. Put a bunch of BS out into the ether, and then we got to spend time later on down the road backing it up because it's unorganized and it's
because it's too sensational and everything else. So
they want to be the first to report instead of being the most accurate report.
Lippmann, that's who this era gets built on, though.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like the public is stupid. We need to educate them.
Yeah. Dumb public. Tell them what they need to know.
And that kind of builds over time until you see that, and we see the Gallup poll, right? So you have all these, and plus, what I didn't get into really too much here, Brian, was like how technology really influenced some of this stuff, because it does a big way, and we'll get into it a little bit.
But I think we need to hit on something that Dewey says in there, and something that I think is lost in our processes. You look at it's civic education. It's participating, right? We have so many people that are civically ignorant at this point. A lot of the issues in journalism would go away right now if people in general, you, me, I'm talking about the public masses, had a desire or a need to civically educate themselves before they started vomiting up all the crazy stuff. So I agree. Lippmann was really I want to say I would call him the grandfather of liberal media, maybe.
I was just, he kind of had the idea, because if you think about it, the whole liberal ideology is based on people are not smart enough or can take care of themselves. The government needs to do it for them. So he's just really on that train that says, the people are not are stupid or ignorant enough to where they can't understand it, and we need to teach them and explain it to them the way we want them to interpret it, right? Yes. But I think the opposite, right? And I think you pointed out something too, though. I think right now, though, if you were to say, we know this methodology is wrong, let's go to a different one. If we just stripped away everything and said, here we go, Dewey was right, let's go back to let's give them the information, let them sort it out.
Yeah.
People will, they're just like,
It would be chaos.
Yeah.
It would be chaos, and it would be full of the false narrative. It would be even more full of the false narrative than it was before, because one of the things that I've figured out is people buy lies more because of comfort than they do because they want them to be true. Lies are comfortable because a lie can be believed even if it's not true, and you really don't need any proof for it. So it's a comfortable it's comfortable. He's lying on me. I don't care. Sounds good.
Okay, check this out. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society.
Agreed.
The conscious and intelligent manipulation, keyword, of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Edward Bernays, who pretty much invented modern PR because he applied Freudian psychology to Lippmann's framework. Propaganda, his book Propaganda in 1928. So explicitly states manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important element of democratic society.
Yes.
Not a bug. That's a feature, right?
Yeah.
That shows the playbook working in two different contexts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Torches of Freedom. This is where Bernie, and that was in 1929, Bernays staged a PR event where debutantes light Lucky Strike cigarettes during the Easter Sunday parade in New York as a feminist statement. A demographic Lucky Strike hadn't reached, and that was like a thing, right? United Fruit Guatemala. This is like when Bernays consults for United Fruit Company in the 40s and 50s. He shapes the PR environment which the 54 CIA-backed coup against Arbins, there we go, occurs. So he used PR, Freudian psychology techniques to manipulate the populace to do what he wanted to. And in 1954, it was a CIA-backed coup.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that's what, for me, is kind of shocking in all this is he wrote a playbook, on manufactured consent. And then he applied it not only to commercial advertising, but he applied it to governmental foreign policy.
It foreshadows something.
I don't necessarily agree, but bro, what a good stroke, right? Like it's, and this means that the line between marketing and propaganda was never clean in practice, and not even in the founder's hand.
It was intentional.
It was intentional. It was completely mainline intentional.
Yeah.
And
this is where I think people get a little off the rails when they're talking about, oh, they wouldn't do that. There's this. They're not smart enough to do this or that. But to be honest, no, you've underestimated the whole time. These people who have done this stuff from the beginning are pretty smart, and they're pretty sharp.
They are.
And they're doing things on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think we can see that now. So anyway, the Communication Act of 1934, this is where the federal government kind of rolls in.
They create the FCC.
Correct.
And consolidate radio, telephone, telegraph regulation under one agency, and establishes the public interest, convenience, and necessity standard for broadcast licensing.
Yeah. So, you can't, if you're going to have you can't have your own radio station without a license for it.
Nope.
Right.
That's why they call it pirate radio.
Yeah. I mean, but now you got the internet, so you can, but it's only on the web. It's not like it's on the airwaves.
Yeah.
Which the FCC has tried many times to regulate.
Yes.
What that communication factor is and it's for this reason. So, yeah. But anyway, the I guess what this is going to is like there was anyway material reason to look nonpartisan at least.
Yes.
Okay. Now, not because anybody was morally committed to that or not, but it was because their licenses are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's really where that came to. Like that, the legal infrastructure there is what makes that objectivity era commercially possible. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but still, we're still in this whole moving. I guess this is the thing. During this era, we're moving the needle of the journalism and the press and everything else.
Well, and there's like subtle intimidation that goes along with that. I mean,
yeah,
the FCC isn't a content regulator, which means the pressure on American broadcasters is indirect, but it's still there, right? Behave a certain way, and I might not renew your license. So you're seeing it. You're seeing, bits and pieces of the intentional change, right? But here's the thing, there's subtle changes, right? They're made to look a certain way. It's made to look nonpartisan, but what it's doing is allowing partisan background politics and partisan background motivations to regulate behaviors.
Who gets what license?
Who gets what? Yeah, who gets what? Who has what? So it's happening, right? Like, make no mistake, people. The devil has been around for a very long time, and he is in the details. And that is why we get caught off guard, because we forget to pay attention to the details. And these are the details. These are the details of what brought us to talk about this today. So
the Hutchins Commission, this is where we really get into some stuff. And we gotta put the perspective here and point this at the right specifics. I got to be careful here.
Do it, man.
The Commission of Freedom of the Press in 1947, which is called the Hutchins Commission, chaired by Robert Maynard Hutchins, who was the president of the University of Chicago. But the commission was funded by Henry Luce. So who is Luce? Okay. I don't want to go deep into this, but he founded Time in 1923, Fortune in 1930, Life in 1936. Time Life was the single dominant American mass communication empire that there was at one time. He wrote The American Life in Life, February 17, 1941, the civilizational mission statement that every subsequent Cold War intervention operated from. So in other words, this dude has a lot of, you would call him like a root of a lot of this modern journalism attitudes and how we do things. So here, the man who funded the Freedom of the Press Commission was also the man running ideological editorials across the three largest general interest magazines in America.
Absolutely.
Now yeah. And he didn't think this was a contradiction.
He thought it was American journalism's job to advance the American civilizational purpose.
Yeah.
The Hutchins Commissions, in that sense, is the professional class validation of Luce's view. The commission produces a free and responsible press, 1947. Core recommendation, the press has a social responsibility, not just to report facts, but to provide a forum for public debate.
Yeah. So I need to, just real quick.
Yeah,
we're reading a lot of notes here just because there was so much stuff.
As usual, when I crack the egg, there's usually more in it than's there. Reggie asked me for an idea, and I was like, "Oh, we'll just talk about this." And then all of a sudden, it's become like this wave of. And I don't blame him. Like I knew it would be deep. So,
but there's a lot here, and I spent a lot of time putting this all together. So just FYI, it's more of a. there's a lot of notes. That's all I'm saying. So apologies for the lack of free form discussion and witty banter like we normally do. But
witty repartee. Sorry.
But the social responsibility journalism, bro.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, here's the thing that bothers me about it, though. Eventually, it became the professional ethics framework for every major newsroom for the next 50 years.
Yes.
Not the news, our social responsibilities.
Yeah.
Which I find to be appalling. Anyway.
Yeah. So one more name here to throw in, Reinhold Niebuhr. Union Theological Seminary theologian, served on the Hutchins Commission. Okay, so here's a guy who's a theological seminary theologian. You know, hey, okay, cool. You're thinking, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, rock and roll.
So Luce sat on the Union Seminary board as well, by the way. Mm-hmm. So there's an institutional theology story along with this. Niebuhr's Christian realism got converted into professional journalism ethics through the channel, and I'm just putting a pin in this for now, because our part 2 of this will get in more into the actual theology of that, and this is a point that I'm just kind of putting a breadcrumb out there,
just leaving a trail,
right? So the objectivity era's concept was designed by a commission funded by the most ideologically driven publisher in America. So that's really not any kind of criticism, but that's really a structural observation. I mean, you see it right there, right? I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the era's self-concept we see is engineered, and it's ideologically driven publisher, which was the era actually doing this, or was it, but because it wasn't clean, and we can go through and we can actually prove it.
You can actually talk about it. It wasn't clean. So tell me, Reggie, at this point, and I'm just interested in your opinion, because as I was reading through some of this last night, where mentally, as you got to this point and you began to study this, where mentally were you at? Like I sort of was at a point last night. I was like, wow, this has been bad for a very, very long time.
I think it confirms a lot, but I will say that it does put in I guess for me, when I went back and looked at all this stuff, it was like, it was not just confirmation, but like holy crap, especially what we're trying to get into with the CIA stuff.
Yeah.
It's just even more of a thing where
it wears me out, man. Like, oh. But anyway, so
yeah,
we're now at the peak of the objectivity era, right? Late 1940s to the mid 70s, the same period that eventually polls at 68% trust.
This is the good period.
Yes, this is also the period in which the CIA ran the most documented domestic media operation in American history, Operation Mockingbird.
Yes, which has got a lot of airtime.
Yeah. The term's provenance is contested. That's worth flagging, but the documented substance is not. Key figures in the primary source of anchors: Frank Wisner's Office of Policy Coordination, established in 1948. Wisner's own phrase for the network was the mighty Wurlitzer declassified CIA records. Cord Meyer oversees agency media relationships through the 50s and 60s. Documented journalists and outlet relationships include Joseph Alsop, his brother Stuart Alsop, CBS under William Paley, the New York Times under Arthur Hayes Sulzberger. Is that right? Sulzberger?
Sulzberger. But here's the point, though. The CIA was, we know from earlier that the CIA uses tactics and stuff from, our good buddy Lippmann. So here we are furthering that with more media outlets that we have with the Alsop brothers, the CBS, and New York Times, and even Time Life, where you have our old buddy Luce comes up. He was the publisher of Fortune and White House psychology warfare chief under Eisenhower. Yeah. So same person, right? Overlapping roles. The Eisenhower Library's own finding aid describes his White House role in the vocabulary propaganda, interpreting word situations, exploiting incidents. I mean, I don't know. I guess we're just shoveling it right now.
Yeah. I mean, it just keeps getting deeper. Now let's look at the receipts. 2 pieces of primary source documentation. Church Committee, 1975 to 76, U.S. Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities. Final report, Book 1, identifies roughly 50 American journalists with CIA relationships. Direct quote from the final report. The CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda.
Carl Bernstein, he wrote an article called The CIA and the Media. It was in Rolling Stone in 1977. It was published 2 years after the Church Committee. Mm-hmm. Okay. More than 400 American journalists with CIA relationships over 25 years, including Luce at Times, Sulzberger at the Times, and Paley at CBS. So that's kind of been, I just want to say that's been actually contested as far as whatever. But the Church Committee and his article, it still should equate and prove that the existence and extent of the relationship between it and the CIA is not arguable. I mean,
arguing about the exact amount, you're just missing the point.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's documented. So we have intelligence assets in our newsrooms and media. Okay, cool. Thanks. That's amazing. And we know that. It's not a guess. We know that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Lippmann's framework, right? Where it's an expert class of people who filters this down to the general class of people.
Yes.
The federal regulatory
threatening of licensing and neutrality,
all that stuff,
and all that stuff.
And you have the Hutchins consensus, which is the whole social responsibility as professional self-understanding of those three. So all three were compatible with, and in some cases, actively required compromised relationship between American newsrooms and American state power.
Yeah.
Comprised of relationships between American newsrooms and American state power.
I think it's important to state this. The objectivity era didn't fail to be neutral because it was corrupt. It failed to be neutral because neutrality wasn't the actual way it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be neutral. They wanted to present it as neutral. We love everybody. No, it was never meant to be level. It was never meant to be neutral in between the different organizations and entities.
I mean, look, this is the key. I mean, here's the point. An editor for Time cooperating with the CIA briefings, he didn't himself think he was compromised at all. I mean, that dude's thinking he's a patriot.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think honestly, if you look at the current form of liberal media, I believe that some of them probably will believe the same thing, that they're patriots, and by defending the weak and the maligned and raging against that they're somehow some kind of patriotic beacon, when really all you are is bought and paid for.
And again, when somebody sits there and goes on this nostalgia trip about what it used to be like, it wasn't.
It was not, no. But I will say this. I don't think that Walter Cronkite thought he was a shill. Does that make sense? Well, I think Walter Cronkite thought he was reporting the news because, but the thing you got to understand is Walter Cronkite didn't walk out to the news desk and just start talking. He was given scripted news information to read, right? They had teleprompters back then and news feeds and all those things. He wasn't just going out there giving commentary. I think that's something we need to understand is, I think a lot of people hold the Cronkite era and the Dan Rathers and all those guys up as these pillars of independent, fast-thinking journalism. No, they were given the news to read. That's why they held those papers. That's why they looked at that screen. They were given information. Now, do I think that they were complicit in thinking or trying to help control a narrative? No. I honestly think they thought they were reporting the news.
Yes. But I think that's another shift I think we see now is that it's not.
Yeah.
That's not the case. I think there's very much a bias going into it, and they know they have a bias going into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, part of this is because the Fairness Doctrine repeal in 1987, that removed the legal incentive for the broadcast to be for broadcast neutrality, right?
Yep.
And then you had the Telecommunications Act in 1996 that completely rewrites the entire regulatory frame, and which, by the way, coincides with all this 24-hour cable news stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, that's a key point to kind of what kind of pushed this even further is because the Fairness Doctrine was the FCC's enforcement about objectivity.
It was, yes.
Right? This is what they could use to say, oh, yeah, you're reporting too much of this, you're not reporting enough of that. But that's gone. Right? So, yeah, the FCC established in 49, operated for 38 years. A key decision in 1969 was from the Supreme Court that they upheld the doctrine in Redline Broadcasting Company versus FCC on the grounds that broadcast spectrum is a scarce public resource and licensees owe public interest obligations in return.
Yes.
In 87, Reagan, FCC under Chairman Dennis Patrick repeals. Reagan had vetoed a congressional attempt to codify the doctrine into law earlier that year. And I don't quite understand, and I didn't get into too much about the whole why did Reagan think about all this stuff. I just know it was a key point in our timeline here. So just point that out.
To make it simple, I think Reagan was a flashpoint. I think Reagan he wasn't a politician, so to speak. So I think he saw things through a less foggy lens or a less slanted lens. So I think that he was able to see some of the fails in all these things. Now, that's not to say that Reagan didn't participate in garbage. I mean, we all know what Iran-Contra was and all that stuff. But I think he was a little clearer of mind because he hadn't spent his entirety of his time indoctrinated into what politics were.
Yeah, and I mean, by the late 80s, this is when you had Rush Limbaugh, and other people like that.
That's when the radio started kicking in,
right? The talk radio stuff really started coming up because you had this old doctrine that was not there anymore to allow that to go. So, but then we have 9 years later, President Clinton signs the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And this did what, Brian?
It was the most sweeping rewrite of American communication law since 1934. What it did was ownership caps raised or eliminated. Before 1996, a single company could own a maximum of 40 radio stations naturally. After 1996, no national cap. Clear Channel goes from roughly 40 stations to over 1,200 by 2005. Cross-ownership rules were loosened. TV, radio, newspaper in the same market. Cable deregulation, creating the conditions for 24-hour news channels to scale. And here's the coincidence that isn't a coincidence. In the same year, Fox News launches October 1996.
Yep.
MSNBC launches in July 1996. The Society of Professional Journalists revises its code of ethics. 1996 isn't the year anyone any one thing broke. It's the year every pillar of the old system got rewritten in the same 12-month window.
This is really where you see, okay, the Clinton era is so critical in a lot of different things. You talk about banking and mortgage regulations and news. This is all key. This all happened during Clinton. People always say like, "Oh, what was wrong so bad about Clinton?" Dude, you obviously haven't done much.
He was morally repugnant.
Oh my gosh, man!
Throw all the rest of it away.
But see, this
on
is
your wife. You're a morally repugnant human being. Sorry. You're still a morally repugnant human being. I'm sorry,
but
Mr. Clinton.
I think these 24-hour news things are where we gotta hone in on for a second. Like, how are you gonna fill 24 hours with original news reporting? How are you gonna do it?
You're not.
No, you fill it with just talk.
Well, here's a great example. I'm gonna pick on Fox News for a minute. Fox News in the morning covers 4 stories. Then there's some banter, some blah, 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 maybe a little weather thrown in.
Yes.
Then Fox and Friends comes on the next hour, same 4 stories, blah, 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 some banter, maybe some weather. Then Fox in the afternoon comes on, same thing. Then you start to hit the personality segments. You start to hit the Jesse Waters. You start to hit the Gutfelds. Same 4 stories, banter, maybe a little humor. You can't possibly cycle enough impactful news in 24 hours to fill it. So what do? We forego content and clarity, and we forego what's the word I'm looking for? The meat and potatoes for the shiny guy with the slick back hair or the shiny girl with the blonde hair. And I don't know if you notice this, but Fox News has got a formula. Blonde-haired woman, dark-haired man, blonde-haired woman, dark-haired man, blonde-haired woman, dark-haired man. It's so obvious and so laid out that it's just a prime example of same 4 stories every hour on the hour, just a different person talking about them.
So I think we really got to hone in on this a little bit, right? It wasn't 1996 where all of a sudden that journalism just got corrupted. That's not it at all. What happened is now you had regulatory conditions that paid for professional neutrality. That was all removed, and the structure started optimizing for a whole different product because you had these 24-hour news stations that started coming up. And what did they have to do? They had to create all this content, and that brought in more talk, more opinion, more banter, more stuff like that into the newsroom. Okay, and then on top of all that, now we have the internet that came in. That did so. The internet. How do I put this? The internet did to the newspaper industry what cable did to broadcast.
Yeah.
Period. Dot. Right.
Yeah.
And so here's some numbers for you. The BLS Newsroom employment. Here you go. In 2008, roughly 71,000 newsroom employees in the U.S. In 2020. Roughly 30,000. So that's over 50% cut in 12 years. Mm-hmm. So you have a whole bunch of things here that really contribute to that. And
well, a main one would be the failure of newspapers and the failure of print news outlets.
That's true.
They just absolutely collapsed.
And I've tried to read some paper. I have tried. And no. Especially our local one here, man. It's garbage.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Craigslist came about, and what did that just raked and
destroyed the classifieds.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's the classifieds were historically 40% of the newspaper revenue. And when you had Craigslist come about, that all just went
vanished.
by. Vanished. Advertising dollars, that was all impacted because, Google and Meta now captured roughly 60% of the digital ad spending by the late 2010s. Mm-hmm. And that as a result of all that, you had local newspapers close. You had people fired from, bigger staff. I mean, like all the major papers are way less staffed than they used to be.
Absolutely.
So so anyway, you now you had all the financial backing that kind of paid for this whole like big newsroom kind of stuff is declining, or it's just freaking gone.
Yeah. It's just vanished.
Yeah.
I mean, but also I think that aligns with structurally how we've changed over the years, right? Like we've become a media-driven society, a digital media-driven society. We're no longer, I know people that read books, but every year it's less and less people that are reading books, right? It's more Kindles and books on audiobooks and all those things. So I think that the paper form of everything has kind of gone to the wayside. So what fills the vacuum at the local level? Here's an answer. Ready? Sinclair broadcasting system. Sinclair as a case study. All right, so let's take a look. Sinclair Broadcasting Group owns and operates 185 plus local TV stations across the U.S. By audience reach, Sinclair broadcasts are in something like 40% of American households.
Here's an important bit. Timothy Burke, he compiled a video in 2018, okay? And it showed dozens of these local anchors from independent feeling stations across the country. And when I first saw this, it was like one of those, you thought it was fake. You really did, but it wasn't. So what he did was, he put together and just like cut and pasted these video segments from across all these different local stories. And it was the same script.
Corporate mandated script.
It was the same script. And he pieced it together, right? From across all these things. The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories. That quote right there is from this pieced together thing. So in other words, this Sinclair Broadcast Group across all these local households absolutely control the narrative about exactly what to say and how to say it. These anchors are now not really news people. They're not journalists. They're reading off a teleprompter.
They're actors.
And acting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what clowns me even more about this is they didn't deny it in their media address to this. They defended the practice without denying it. Takeaway local news is now a distributed corporate product, right? That's the takeaway. You're now it's staged. It's staged like a play. It's staged. That's just shocking. Like even though I knew it, it's still shocking that when they got caught, they just leaned into it. Like,
okay, so here we go. Trusted News Initiative, the TNI.
The Trusted News Initiative. Okay.
Right. Okay, March 2019, the BBC convenes an interested group that they called the Trusted News Initiative. Okay.
Sounds like something off of Ron Burgundy.
I know, bro. This is crazy, right? The primary BBC press release, right? So here's the members: BBC, Reuters, Facebook, Financial Times, AFP, The Hindu, CBC Radio Canada, European Broadcasting Union, First Draft, Microsoft, Twitter, AP, The Washington Post, YouTube, Google, Global. Okay? This is their coordinated response to disinformation. Okay? So member outlets and platforms share flags on content they're identified as misinformation. So that's what they did. It's a coordinated action to kind of go across these different stories and kind of flag what's misinformation. Okay? How like this sounds like, to me, infrastructure that could be used to coordinate suppression of legitimate dissent.
We saw it happen in live time, Reggie.
We did.
During COVID, we saw this practice happen in live time. How many medical professionals were booted off of Twitter, booted off of Instagram, removed from Facebook, blackballed by hospitals, blackballed by the government? We literally saw them turn this into a manipulation machine.
And this became utterly devastating in December 22 when Musk releases the internal Twitter communications to independent journalists Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger, and others on there, right? So what did it say? It showed that there was direct coordination between Twitter's trust and safety team and FBI, DHS, and other federal agencies on content moderation decisions.
Weekly meetings, flagged accounts, requests for action on specific posts. The scale wasn't occasional. National security coordination, it was routine and ongoing.
So the Twitter files that's the first operational window into the coordination layer that TNI implied at the industry level, right? So what used to be called the media is now a coordination system that includes government, platforms, legacy newsrooms, and NGOs.
And let's not forget what we now know. The emails have been uncovered and made public that Joe Biden and his staff were intentionally asking for legitimate news sources and sources of medical information to be blackballed, removed, and blocked from Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. They were asking they were using your functional ports of news to censor and take away the information you needed to make a rational decision about what was going on.
What happened to actual research and clinical trials on how effective masks were, Brian?
Yeah, nothing happened. There were no clinical trials.
There was.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, pre-C-word era.
You're talking pre the vid.
I
thought you were talking about during.
No.
The whole medical lie.
Because keep in mind, Asia's done a lot of this.
There was a lot of research which showed that it was ineffective, completely ineffective.
Yes,
like wearing a mask is completely ineffective. People were standing behind a plexiglass window with a hole in the middle.
Yeah, give me that. Here's what I'll say, and I personally did this when they first came out and said about all this mask stuff and everything else. The first thing I did was look for studies to try to find, like, okay, has anybody done a study about how effective the mask is? Again, well, not even just N95. Masking period is effective against like a flu virus of some sort. And there was a ton of, there was like, 3 or 4 big studies done in China. And I think there was one in, I can't remember if it was Taiwan or Korea. I can't remember. Anyway, but there was like 3 of them right off the bat I found, and you could see it. It was like, and the conclusions were clear. And these weren't like just somebody's opinion they wrote a blog about. These are like actual, real studies. They used real people with in micronics, at the micron scale about things and everything else, and it showed they're ineffective. And you go like 3 months later, when I was trying to actually have this conversation with somebody, and I said, "Well, look, I'll show you." You could not find them; they would not show up in a search. That tells you right there how things were controlled, and the narrative was being completely just obliterated by the government.
Let's talk about there was an obvious one, and this is the one that really kind of broke me. When Fauci first began reporting on COVID, he came out and said masks weren't going to work. They're not effective in the very beginning. That vanished and did not resurface until the restrictions were taken off. Well, I don't have a delete button, Reggie. Not that effective.
I don't either.
I don't know, dude. It's just here's where I run into some problems with everything that's gone on, and we're wrapping up and getting into the end of this episode. But I think what we're trying to communicate to you guys in this first episode is this, like institutional capture, like everything that we've been talking about, this is not just started in the last 15 years.
No,
this has been methodically unfolded and instituted since I'd say in America since the 20s and 30s, probably.
Well, again, we have an era where it was like this objectivity could happen.
Yeah.
It was still being used and it moved a certain way, but you had a one lifetime span where we actually have stuff in place to kind of help neutrality as much as it could.
Yeah. And it lasted exactly that long.
Yeah. I mean, you really did. And so here we are in 2026, and it's just like we're at anybody with a thinking critical mind at all is looking around going, what in the world is this stuff? I'll tell you right now, I do not watch the news, period. I do not. I don't read it. I don't watch it. I actually have to, if I want to know about something, I'll have to go dig through and do some of my own research, and I have to filter everything through all kinds of stuff in order to get to the truth.
I intentionally do my own research. I don't trust the news, period. Like, one of the things that I have learned is that again, this is not critical thinking objectivity. This is a structured, spoon-fed, dramatic play that goes on every day. So what I do is I watch for a headline. Trump bombs Iran for these 3 reasons. I don't go to that headline. I then begin to research. Okay, so why is Trump bombing Iran? What would be the possible reasons that was necessary at this time? Blah, blah, and just keep researching until I get some answers. That's why I'm not outraged by the fact that this is going on. You know, but if your sole source is this spoon-fed, structured thing that you've been just eating up like, you know, a birthday cake.
You just can't, yeah.
It's just not, you're not going to have any grounding in reality at all.
No, you can't digest the news as it is and expect to have some kind of factual truth come out of it.
Not at all.
You've got to filter it out. And I mean, I think you see this from the framework that set all this up from Lippmann. You got the Fairness Doctrine repeal in 87 that set things to where you had neutrality was not even a thing. Telecom Act in 1996. Then you had this whole collapse of the way the newsrooms and all that stuff worked, but up until, you know, now, right? So
and then you had the onset of a cabal, a digital cabal that began to edit everything that you saw.
Yes.
Decide what you needed to see and didn't need to see.
So it's not that journalism is in decline. It's just journalism isn't being described anymore. I would dare say that journalism doesn't exist anymore. Exactly. All right. So in part 2, because we have a second part to this. We've kind of gone through the historical era and why and how, but what I want to know and what we're going to answer is, why does the public still treat this as truth? And specifically, what I want to get into is, why does the Christian public just soak all this up as truth, right? The Bereans are going to be part of it. Acts 17. I mean, that's always one of the lines I use sometimes is, I'd rather be a Berean, right? And so anyway, that's where we are, and that'll be in part 2. So the news will continue to be shut off in my home, and I'll just read what I watch it from time to time, but it's just because I like to laugh. Like, I like to laugh at idiots. Like, there are idiots out there, man. There are total morons out there that are wearing hair slicked back, nice tie, making $1 million a year, sitting at their news desk, spewing absolute, what is it, Reggie? Hot garbage. Speaking of hot garbage, by the way, one last thing. You talked about how some things are ridiculous. I'm going through my annual compliance training right now at my job. It's fantastic. It's like harassment and, things of that nature. We had a big meeting the other day, and I found this hilarious. So it's a Canadian company. The first thing this woman does when she comes on stage is she goes, we have to first acknowledge the indigenous people that lived here before us and all this stuff.
You mean the MMI 2Q BGAGQRT extra scoop of protein?
I mean, and I'm sitting up there and she just spoon feeds us all this stuff about this tribe and this and that. And then, but then what is it doing? Nothing. Our office, nobody's moved that office and gave it back to the people.
Yeah.
Nobody has sit there and no, it's a bunch of freaking spoon-fed nonsense, bro.
Here's the problem.
It's crazy.
These people are the same people that think that the reason we should have immigrants is because we need people to pour our coffee and pick our fruit.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not because they
not because they could cure cancer or because they could be great entrepreneurs or start a movement, or we need people to pick fruits and vegetables and pour coffee. And that's not me. That's your tolerant democratic left.
And I brought this up during one of my meetings because it was a group of people I trust or whatever. And I'm like, it's just all this lip service behind all this crap. It's just dumb. They're not doing anything. They're so greedy and power mongering. That's what they show. And it was like the one answer was like, well, but they're bringing awareness. Really? What to what? That human history is built on conquest?
Yeah.
That there's really no
war is in every historical era of,
like how far back are you going to go for the land? That's what kills me.
Yeah. Like here's the thing. Here's my question. Here's how I look at it. Okay, sure. Some poor indigenous dude lost his home 200 years ago.
He got wrecked, bro.
He got wrecked. So what are you going to do? Just going to talk about it? Or are you going to sell off all your crap and give it to an indigenous tribe somewhere and make up for it? No, you're not.
Because
you're just rage baiting. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. Well, but that guy that sat there and got wrecked.
Yeah.
How did he get it? Or how did his family
get it? He wrecked whoever was there before him.
And they wrecked whoever was. I mean, like,
and here's what's so funny. And anytime you mention this, the poor American Indians. Look, dude, I respect the American Indian tribes, but they were warring and killing each other before anybody else showed up.
Well, yeah. And
which is a direct mirror to what's happening in the Middle East right now. Because whether we're there or not, those people are going to wreck each other. That's just what they do. It's not an insult. It's biblical.
Wreck it.
They wreck each other. They murder and pillage and
I don't know. It's
burn
crazy.
Because that's what God said would happen until the day of his return.
Yep. All right. Well, anyway, look, that's all for today. That's the news era objectivity.
Hopefully we laid the foundation for the next episode.
There's a lot there to cover. So part 2, stay tuned. That'll be next week. We appreciate it. We're R&B Talks.
I'm Brian.
I'm Reggie.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.